In one corner is one of culture's most enduring figures, the rugged and hard-riding American cowboy. In the other is the United States' modern police force's answer to especially dangerous criminals, a police SWAT officer. Both are iconic figures of American media, but who would win in a matchup between the two? Hello and welcome to another episode of the Infographics show's Who Would Win? Cowboy versus SWAT Officer. The cowboy has his roots in Spanish Mexico, when ranchers hired farmhands to ride alongside their cattle and keep them safe from wild animals, while guiding them to feeding and watering areas. Many of these early cowboys or vaqueros were Native Americans who quickly developed expert riding and rope handling skills. These elite riders were rumored to only dismount their horses for a chance to dance with a pretty girl. And honestly, could you blame them? After the Mexican-American War of 1846 to 1848, more Americans poured into the formerly Mexican lands, and the Mexican cattle herders were quick to teach these flat-footed gringos how to round up cattle and ride like a pro. With the 1849 gold rush in California, demand for beef across the American West skyrocketed, and the cowboy profession took off. Soon, cowboys were herding cattle from as far south as Mexico all the way as far north as Colorado. Cowboys needed incredible endurance, often being on horseback for over 12 hours a day and even taking their meals while riding. Tasked with herding cattle for miles from ranches to slaughterhouses or auction markets, cowboys needed to be tough enough to endure extreme weather and always keep a sharp eye out for wolves, bears, and cattle rustlers. This meant that cowboys also had to be crack shots, though despite all the fiction about the American Wild West, the truth is that violence was relatively rare. Still, a cowboy had to know how to shoot, not just on foot but on horseback, which added a great degree of difficulty, making cowboys expert marksmen. At his hip, the American cowboy often carried the Colt 1851 Navy revolver, so named after the Republic of Texas Navy. One of the most iconic firearms of the Old West, the Colt 1851 was also one of the most abundant, with 250,000 produced up until 1873. The Colt fires a .36 caliber round lead ball at a velocity of 1,000 feet per second, though it only remained accurate up to a range of about 25 yards. This was due to the poor ballistic characteristics of a round lead ball and the lack of rifling present in modern-day weapons. On his back or on his saddle, our cowboy likely carried an 1853 slant-breech Sharps carbine, an incredibly accurate and reliable rifle. The Sharps carbine was a single-shot rifle that was popular with the armies of many nations. Assigned to many far west American cavalry units, the Sharps rifle was an icon of the frontier and gained special notoriety in the hands of anti-slavery forces in the 1850s. Eventually, the rifle earned the nickname Breacher's Bibles, after famous abolitionist Henry Ward Breacher claimed that there was more moral power in the rifle than in 100 Bibles. Capable of firing 8 to 10 rounds a minute and with a maximum firing range of 1,000 yards, the Sharps carbine gave cowboys incredible long-range accuracy and firepower both. In the late 1960s, several sniping incidents by criminals against civilians and police officers shocked the United States. Police forces around the nation, but especially in Los Angeles, realized that their response measures to incidents such as these were inadequate or non-existent, and that a need for a small group of highly trained and disciplined officers was desperately needed to combat these threats. Thus, the concept of SWAT, or Special Weapons and Tactics, was born. The first SWAT unit consisted of 15 four-man teams who were made up of volunteers from within the police department they served and had specialized experience in prior military service. The concept soon spread around the nation, and SWAT became the police's own form of 911, responding to incidents that regular beat officers were not equipped or trained to deal with. SWAT service is typically voluntary, with individual officers volunteering to try out for the SWAT team. However, some police departments assign their officers mandatory 2-year rotations on and off an active team. Tasked with at times facing military-grade threats, SWAT training can be intense and has a great focus on physical fitness as well as marksmanship, first aid, and close-quarter combat techniques. SWAT officers must be in peak physical condition and are extensively trained in close-quarter combat to assault and clear buildings room by room. They must also be proficient marksmen though, able to engage long distance as well as close-in targets. SWAT officers are armed to deal with both these threats, typically carrying a 9mm Beretta M9. A very accurate and reliable pistol, the Beretta remains accurate at a range of up to 54 yards, but has a maximum range of 109 yards. The weapon features a 15-round magazine and can fire about as fast as you can pull the trigger. The primary armament of a SWAT officer, however, is the M4 assault rifle. While for years the Heckler & Koch MP5 submachine gun was the mainstay of SWAT teams around the world, the need for a rifle that could deliver massive stopping power at both close and long ranges led to the preference for the M4 carbine. Carrying a 30-round magazine with a firing rate of 700 to 950 rounds a minute, the M4 can deliver extremely accurate fire up to 550 yards, but has a maximum range of almost 4,000 yards. The 5.56 cartridge that it fires can penetrate body armor at close to medium ranges and makes the M4 one of the most accurate and deadly rifles in the world. So now that we know the history and equipment of our two combatants, just who would come out on top? At close range, the Cowboy's Colt revolver is absolutely devastating. The round ball projectile was notorious for not just shattering bone, but bouncing around inside the body and causing massive secondary damage. Unfortunately, a modern SWAT officer is equipped with a Kevlar vest known as a second chance vest, and many even carry military-grade body armor featuring armor inserts. Against such protection, the Cowboy's Colt isn't going to do much, and given its low firing rate and limited 6 shots before needing a reload, the Cowboy is at a huge disadvantage. By comparison, the SWAT officer's 9mm Beretta not only has twice the accurate range of the Cowboy's Colt, but has over double the ammunition capacity and can be reloaded with a fresh 15-round magazine in a matter of seconds, while the Cowboy must reload each of his 6 rounds by hand. It's clear that in close quarters, the SWAT officer dominates the Cowboy, and there's not much chance of survival for our hard-riding vaquero. At long range though, the Cowboy's sharp carbine may be much slower firing than the M4, but features far greater accuracy at far greater ranges. A purposeful trade-off, the single-shot sharp carbine was specially made to eliminate targets at extreme ranges, well before they could get close enough to pose a serious threat. The M4 has a much smaller maximum effective range, especially for man-sized point targets, at about 492 yards, and even a SWAT officer's formidable body armor isn't going to offer protection for long against highly accurate, long-range fire. Unless our SWAT officer can get into close quarters, he won't survive this long-range showdown. However, once within a few hundred yards, the Cowboy doesn't stand much of a chance against the M4's superior firing rate and ability to sustain that fire both. Realistically, our Cowboy's only chance of winning the showdown is to keep the encounter at extreme ranges, where his long-range rifle far exceeds the capabilities of the SWAT officer's M4. However, in most scenarios, the SWAT officer's superior equipment and training both are going to see him triumph over the Cowboy, who may be a rough-riding, tough-as-nails vaquero, but simply lacks the extensive training of a modern SWAT officer. For us, the SWAT officer is the clear winner. 9 times out of 10, the SWAT officer's superior equipment and training will trump the only advantage the Cowboy really has, which is long-range accuracy. And with most firefights taking place within 25 yards, the SWAT officer's M4 and Beretta sidearm both offer superior firing rates, ability to sustain fire, and accuracy. How do you think this fight would actually go down though? Who else do you want to see in our epic Who Would Win matchups? Let us know in the comments. Also, be sure to check out our other Who Would Win video, Predator or Superman. Thanks for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.